a real privilege for me to introduce tonight's speaker, Ruth.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ruth. I'm an alcoholic. Unlike Maria, I came from a 100% alcoholic family. Both my parents drank themselves to death at different times. My mother 2 years before I got here, and my father 9 years after I was in AA. My sister died 18 months ago with 35 years of sobriety. So it's pretty well covered. I don't know how I thought I would escape, but I thought it was a mental job, that if you controlled yourself, which I was able to do early, and I grew up with a lot of Italians in the New York area, and they always had wine with dinner. It wasn't excessive. Always had beer with pizza. It wasn't excessive. And I noticed that as I graduated from high school on Long Island, and went back into the city to take my nurse's training, that I was putting people to bed that drank too much. I had a really high capacity. Now, if somebody had told me at that point that that is a precursor to alcoholism, I wouldn't have believed them, because I had no trouble with it. I had no hangovers. I just could drink a lot. And if any of you started out that way, you know it doesn't last forever. In the 50s, which is when I graduated, child of the 50s, the birth of rock and roll annoyed our parents no end. And because we didn't have television, but we had plenty of radios. And I can remember, I'm dating myself, but that's all right. I can remember the Second World War, when all the blinds had to be down so that the lights didn't show on either coast. And I remember going up on the top of the apartment building we lived in to see the lights come on in New York City after the war. And that was a big deal. Moved out on Long Island, back to the city for my training. And then I had a daughter, got pregnant before I was married. In the 50s, that was not popular. And you had very few choices, so we got married. And we were just much too immature people to be married at that point. And so to get a divorce back in the 50s, it wasn't as easy as it is now. So I drove out to Grand Forks, North Dakota, where it was a lot easier than New York State. And a classmate of mine was out there with a husband in the Air Force. So I drove out there and put my year's residency in and got a divorce. And immediately married again in 3 days. And actually, we've been going together for more than 3 days. But and we were married 11 years, and I count that as a fairly good marriage. Again, at the end of 11 years, his reason for leaving was because I was already in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he thought I should be cured by 11 months and not spend so much time going to meetings. And he didn't 100% trust me. So I didn't want to stay married to somebody who didn't trust me, and so he left. In any case, my drinking took a different turn when we were stationed in England for 3 years. And I found that I was working a day shift. The next week I would work an evening shift, and then I'd work a night shift, and then you'd go to day shift. Every week it was a different shift. It was very difficult for me. I'm not a night person, and I found that having a little something to drink helped me go to sleep. Of course, I slept the whole day away, but that's all right. And he began to notice that I was drinking too much. And as a nurse, I was considered an officer by the Air Force. He was an enlisted person. That was a bone of contention, too. So that he swore that he saw me in some officers' club when he didn't. And, I wasn't there, but denial makes it sound like you really are there. What I should have done was say, I'm not going to deny it because you're not going to believe that, and I'm not going to affirm it because I wasn't there. So I left him kind of in limbo on that one. Anyhow, that marriage ended because of my coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, which I did here in Las Vegas. I got sober in Las Vegas, and my drinking came to a screeching halt. I had a responsible job, and my employer decided he didn't want me anymore when I missed all the Mondays, and my husband decided he didn't want me anymore either. I was a home drinker. I didn't drink in the closet, but I was in the bedroom at least. I was close to the closet. And back then, there were no detoxes, so you had to sober up at home. And I remember hallucinating. I remember seeing a man standing in the doorway looking at me who was not there. And I remember seeing a large spider crawling up the dresser. And there was no spider either. I made the mistake of asking my husband if he saw it, and of course he didn't. So he was happy to get rid of me too. So the employer and the husband said out. So I chose to go to We Care, which is still, it's going to celebrate 65 years next year. And I went into the We Care house, the original house down on 8th Street, with 22 beds. And I very arrogantly told my husband, we can be really arrogant when we're drunk or recovering, you can pick me up tomorrow afternoon, I'll be fine. Well, he unfortunately already knew the rules, which in that case, in that house, were posted on the hot water heater. The hot water heater was in the bathroom of the newest girls, right across from the toilet. So when you sat on the toilet, you read the rules. And the rules say we request a 30-day stay. While I went bustling out of there to tell them how important I was and that the world would not be able to get along without me. For 30 days, they didn't probably even know how to run the washing machine. As I'm sure you know, they knew how to run the washing machine and buy things and cook things, and they took care of that very well. So one of the things I was taught early in my sobriety was if I was grateful for my sobriety, I owed Alcoholics Anonymous two things. One was some money in the basket. That was not mandatory if I didn't have it, and there were times when raising two children on one salary, there wasn't a lot of extra money, and there was 50 cents for the basket, as opposed to what I'm able to put in now. And the other was time, and that was mandatory. That if you were grateful for your sobriety, you owed Alcoholics Anonymous some time, because people were here before you that put their time in to make sure it was here for you, when you didn't even know that you wanted it. And I didn't. I was not happy in the beginning. You did not want to come up and hug me. You did not want to get close to me. For the first week or so, I sent those vibes out like I'm trying really hard to think of a good reason how to get out of here legally with their blessing, because I'm really not like you. And I learned a lot by staying. I learned a lot about acceptance. Didn't mean I had to like it. I thought you had to like something before you could accept it. I learned sometimes you just have to accept something because it is. You don't have to like it. You can hate it, as a matter of fact, but you have to accept it. I learned that I have no power over anybody other than myself. And if I allow you to get under my skin, it's me. It's not you. That was a hard one, too, because, I don't know about you, but all of us seem to have some kind of button somebody can push. And, a couple people found buttons that they could push, and I would flame up. And one was an AA member, and I was 10 years sober at the time, too. And I thought, at 10 years, you probably got it made. You don't have it made. Don't think that. And it was an AA member, and I was sure I was right, and she was sure she was right, but we knew where each other's buttons were, and there was no winning that. It was a very uncomfortable thing for me. Fortunately, I don't know where she is or what happened to her. I haven't had to run into her since then, but we left with a bad taste in our mouth for each other. And then again, at 16 years, I did that with somebody I was working with. And I had allowed a situation to continue that bothered me so much, I wanted to strangle this guy. And so I apologized for allowing that and for giving him a hard time. Well, his jaw almost fell on the floor. But I want to tell you, it relieved me of what I felt about it. And so far, I haven't had to do that again. What I've learned about me through Alcoholics Anonymous is I'm one of very many in the world. I've had the opportunity through the service that I've done in Alcoholics Anonymous to see people in other areas in the Pacific region and in Canada and overseas, and went to a meeting in the middle of Australia out by Ayers Rock, which is now called Uluru, in a little hospital in Alice Springs, and AA is everywhere, and you just have to walk in. Even if you don't speak the language, you know the feeling is right. In Mexico also. The things I've learned from other people, that other people have taught me, and it's not original thought, is when you're presenting something, and even ask sobriety to somebody, present both sides of the story. What can happen if you stay sober? What can happen if you don't stay sober? And let them make their mind up about it. I hope that as an example, they realize which way I decided to fall on that one. But I've done it with other things too, and I make sure I listen to the minority voice. In my home group, which is the second edition group, the same as Maria's, and she's very active in our home group, it's important for us to listen to everybody's voice. Because I have seen in a home group somebody say, well, what if we do such and such instead? And the whole group thinks, oh, well, we didn't think of that. And they change their mind and their vote. And I've seen it at other levels too. Some of the other things I have learned are not only to listen to people, but when I am chairing a meeting or a business meeting, not speaking, but that I present an item for you to consider to vote on, that I present it fairly. And I know I have when people have come up to me afterward and said, but you didn't tell us how you felt about it. Then I know I was successful, because I have strong feelings about most of the things I present, but that's not what the position calls for. The position calls for you to present the topic so you people can vote on it. Excuse me. One of the people that can push my buttons, not so much anymore, but when I was younger in sobriety, and I didn't tell you, but in this past June 26th, I celebrated 55 years of sobriety. Thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I have done things outside, because I believe we recover and we can do things outside of Alcoholics Anonymous too. I worked with the State Board of Nursing. I helped put together the first counselors' credentialing opportunities for the state of Nevada back in the late 70s. And I served on a couple of other boards other than We Care, which I served on for a very long time. I was on the Boys and Girls Club. I was on the Dachshund Club. That was a fun one, though. And a couple of others. So you can do things outside in the community because of Alcoholics Anonymous. If I hadn't been sober, I wouldn't have been interested in any of that kind of stuff. So one of the people that can push my buttons, or not anymore so much, is my son. He's very much like me. Also an alcoholic, not quite as sober as I am. And He, when I still had a house with a lawn that you had to mow, that was a long time ago, I know. He borrowed the lawnmower to cut somebody's lawn, and I said, okay, but I want it back before dark because I want to cut our lawn. Well, I guess I must have had 12, 13 years of sobriety, maybe. So I'm standing out on the lawn as it's getting dark, and I'm thinking, where is he? And this is before cell phones. I couldn't text him or say, where the hell are you? And he finally got there just as the sun was about to set. I screamed like a fishwife at him. Where the hell were you? You said, oh, I wanted this here before. So he looked at me. He said, Mom, it's just a lawnmower. Oh, I could have smacked him. But he was right. You know, I was out of control that time. So if you think there's a perfection time in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm here to tell you there is not a perfection time in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm still capable of putting on a bit of a performance, usually in public, not in private. And it was about 10 years ago with 45, 46 years of sobriety. I was in a Target store and I had a coupon, and I was sure that I was going to get the right amount of paper towel and the right amount of toilet paper. It was a 2-for-1, and they were going to give me a $10 coupon in return when I turned my $5 in. So I got up to the counter. That's all I had was those things. And I turned them in, and she rang them up, and she said, no, it just says $5 coupon. No, I said, I read the ad, and it says that if I buy these 2 items, I get a $10 coupon. Well, she said, I'm just a trainee, but let me bring it up again. So she rang it up again and came out the same way again. So now I'm getting a little upset with the trainee. And I'm saying to her in a louder and more strident voice, you need to read the flyer. She pulls the flyer out. And by this time she said, let me get the manager. Okay. She calls her manager over. I notice a security guard is now walking closer to the checkout counter that I'm at as I'm standing there with my hands on my hips and using my Army voice, as many people told me, were you an Army nurse? No, I wasn't really, but I can sound very commanding if I have to be. And she said, she looked and she said, oh, well, here's the problem. This is the manager. Here's the problem. You've got 8 paper towels and you're supposed to only buy 6 to get that coupon. Well, she said, would you like me to go exchange it for you? No, I wouldn't. I just wanted to get out of there. Said, forget the coupon. Let me just have those things. I'm ready to get out of here. And as I walked out of the store, this little trainee said, I hope we come back and see us again. I thought, I've never been back in that Target store. Never. It's not the one I would use, and I've never been back in it. So you can, with substantial sobriety, make an ass of yourself if you wish to. It's not a guarantee of being non-human. And human is about as high as most of us get. I know there's some that may argue that, but most of my friends would not argue that. And the ones that would argue a little higher than human are not particularly my friends. But you may know 1 or 2, either in or out of AA, that think they have all the answers. Very, very distressing when somebody has all the answers and you can't talk about anything. The best thing I've found in that situation is just be quiet, nod my head, say, I understand what you're saying. And if they just keep insisting, but you don't understand. Oh, I understand what you're saying. I don't agree with it, but I understand what you're saying, yes. And they usually will shut up after a few times of that. But there is a correct way to do it and an incorrect way. As I was, the worst of my drinking hit my kids and my daughter, who is 6 years older than my son, and plus they have different fathers. They've never been really close. So growing up, they knew how to annoy each other. They knew their buttons, She's looking in my room. She touched my doorknob, and that kind of thing went on. But I used my daughter to take care of her younger brother when I was drinking and hungover the next morning. I worked a 3 to 11 shift, which was perfect for an alcoholic because I could come home and have some drinks with Johnny Carson or whoever the late show guy was, and we'd fall asleep together. Burned a lot of holes in my chairs, but we'd fall asleep together. Didn't burn the house down, but I didn't feel like fixing lunch for either of them, and so she would do it. I abdicated my responsibilities as a mother to my daughter, and it took a while to get over that and to make amends and for her to accept the fact that now the worst thing she can say when she's presented me with a problem, and I have to really be careful about how I answer it, is, "Oh, you're giving me one of those AA sayings again." And I mean, I don't have many other sayings but the AA sayings, but I have to know to calm down a bit on that because she doesn't want those answers. And so sometimes I just need to listen to her and what she has to say. She also, my mother was a nurse. I was a nurse. My sister was a nurse, and my daughter was a nurse. That's the defective gene in the female side of the family. And although none of us are actively working at it anymore, so she's done very well with her life, and she lives in Pittsburgh now. Has a very nice boyfriend who's very good to her, and my son has been married for 20 years. I don't know how, and I don't ask. And I very probably unkindly call his wife the warden, but that's all right. Gives you an idea of her place in the marriage. They're in Italy right now for 2 weeks, having a good time. They like Italy. It's their second or third time. And he sends me pictures of where he is and tells me what they're eating. So things have been better in those areas. But if you have children, it takes a while. I remember one fellow, long time ago, Happy Jack, some of the older members here, longer sober, I should say, will remember him. And he was 26 years sober before his daughters ever spoke to him again. And unfortunately, he died within a year of that. But at least he got to get together with his daughters before that happened. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that didn't happen to me. I'm very grateful, and as a nurse, they didn't have the process that they have now, 5 years process to get your license back. Your reputation followed you. And so I tried to pay back my profession for that. There are a lot of very serious things in Alcoholics Anonymous. And my thought is that if your higher power brings you to it, they'll bring you through it. And the fellowship is where you go, your sponsor and other people, if your sponsor's not available, to talk it through. Not that I have any answers for anybody, but I can listen, and I kind of take on your problem, relieves you a little bit, but I don't have a solution, but you could talk. And sometimes all we need to do is talk to somebody about something to kind of see the solution. And sometimes, if you have seen enough of one kind of solution, you can say, well, you might do this or you might do that. And I'm not telling you which way to do it. It's your choice. But you could do this, you could do that. Sometimes there's a third that you can offer them that they haven't thought of. It's never a bad idea to take a break from somebody that you're close to. family members. They could get sometimes a little too close for us. And if you have time for meditation, and if you go read your AA literature to begin your morning, or you end your day that way, that should be your time. And other people in the house should respect it. Maybe not the dogs and the cats, but the other people should. Like I said, there's a lot of seriousness about our illness. It is fatal. I have seen people die of our illness many times, other than my relatives. I've seen them in hospitals dying, and that was my vision of an alcoholic before I became one and found Alcoholics Anonymous. There are very unpleasant ways to die if you care to drink again, and I don't so far. But I want you to know there's also a lot of fun in Alcoholics Anonymous. With the right group of friends, and occasionally with the wrong group too, you can get away with a little bit. And if you have a kind of snarky sense of humor like I do, and I have to be careful who I use it on or with, but you can have a lot of fun. And I don't know about you, but many of us in AA also seem to have a little bit of OCD of some kind. You know, we want to control something. We don't have control of much, we've learned, except ourselves. But there's something we need to feel we have control over, important things. For me, the important thing that I like to control is the way you hang the toilet paper. Now, if you're not sure, if you invite me to your house, you'll be sure when I leave. It used to be an obsession, so that I would do it in airplanes, very difficult in a regular class because they don't give you much room to maneuver that. Much easier in first class. I've done it there too. I'm well enough so I don't have to do it in airplanes anymore. Occasionally I'll make a comment in a hotel, but sometimes they are locked so you can't do anything about it. And the ones that hang it, you know, up and down like this, that's just confusing. If you have a cat, I'll forgive you for hanging it the wrong way, but I carry newspaper articles on how to hang it correctly if you're any problem. And so I don't know whether it's the way you fold your socks, where you like the forks in the drawer, or the forks separated from the knives in the drawer, or what it is. But there's something maybe that you can identify with, that you like a certain way in your house. And that's your control center. Really important now, isn't it? And the important thing is that you can learn to laugh about it. And there would have been a long time when I would not have told that kind of story. But now I know it is much better to be able to laugh at myself and accept life as it is. And who knows? You know, when people say, well, what would you do? You know, when I go to a meeting at We Care once a week, and the girls there are, you know, under 60 days, most of them. Some are much shorter and some a few longer. You know, well, I don't know what I should do. You know, should I go to sober living? Should I go here? Should I go there? Hey, I don't know what my road is. How am I supposed to tell you what your road is? And so it's like, you don't have to decide today. Keep it in today. One of the things I learned when I was in We Care was she made all of us imagine that this was the last day of your life. So this is the last day of your life. How much of it do you want to spend in yesterday? You can't improve the past. You can't change it. And how much do you want to spend in tomorrow, which is not yours anyway? You're not going to have it. And so I learned to keep in 24 hours. That doesn't mean I don't make plans or get tickets ahead of time and know where I'm going. I have to write it on calendars, a couple of calendars now at this age, a couple of calendars and a whole week's worth in my pocket, several places, but I'm not living in it. I'm not worrying about what am I going to do tomorrow morning or tomorrow during the day, and what do I have to do on Friday? I keep it in today. And so far, for me, today has gone pretty well. And so I hope you get to enjoy your sobriety some, that you hook up with a really good sponsor who'll take you through the steps one at a time in order, and then possibly through the traditions. And if your sponsor can't take you through the traditions, then find somebody who will. It doesn't have to be your sponsor. And right now I'm taking 2 people through concepts too, because they're all applicable to our living situation today and can be helpful if you use them. So I hope that you have some fun with your sobriety, ability to laugh at yourself, and you stay sober one day at a time. Thanks.